Assalamualaikum. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Zul Azhar Zahid Jamal, Naib Chancellor Universiti Malaysia Perlis, Timbalan-timbalan Naib Chancellor dan pegawai-pegawai utama UNIMAP, Dekan-dekan dan Ketua Jabatan, warga kerja universiti, pelajar-pelajar yang dihormati dan dikasihi sekalian. Selamat pagi, good morning to all of you. Salam sejahtera, salam satu Malaysia. First of all, saya ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada pihak penganjur Universiti Malaysia Perlis serta para hadirin sekalian kerana sudi memperuntukkan ruang dan masa untuk bersama-sama menjayakan majlis ini. Saya harapkan semoga segala input dan ilmu yang akan dikongsi pada hari ini akan memberi manfaat kepada semua warga Universiti Malaysia Perlis serta warga Universiti Awam dan institusi pendidikan sekitar Perlis yang turut hadir bersama. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honoured to be associated with UNIMAP under the CEO Faculty Program. I'm glad to finally have the opportunity to share some of the lessons that myself and UNW have learned with you today. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I look forward to your questions, and I hope that the discussion we will have will fuel your thoughts and ideas and help elevate your academic projects and pursuits in the days to come. First of all, Dato', I do apologize to you and for having to defer these sessions a number of times. I think because the times have not been quite friendly to me. I've been traveling quite a lot, actually. Yes, I just arrived from London, I think a couple of hours ago, but still jet lag. So if you do have questions, don't ask tough questions for me today. Maybe in the next coming sessions, you can actually ask tough questions for me. Anyway, I am delighted to be here, standing right in front of you. This is actually my second time talking to a group of students. The first one was a couple of weeks ago. We don't really have a lot of engagement with students. I'm glad under this CEO faculty, we can actually have engagement with students so that the students can actually understand what industries are looking for. The first one I had was actually also in London. That is actually with UKEC. That is to engage with the Malaysian student in London in terms of the industries, in terms of the prospect, things like that. This is my second engagement with students. I do expect for you to actually ask me questions, but remember, not tough questions, yeah? Now, let me go through the presentation. And I was telling, that's the younger days of me, actually. I think they changed the picture. I was telling Dato', saying that I honestly do not expect, I don't really know what to expect from this lecture. So, because this is my first time engaging students, so I will start off with just some introductions of myself, and then I think I'll take you through UNW. I'm not too sure how many of you actually knows UNW well. So if you don't listen, and in the next coming courses or lectures we're going to have, you can actually ask about so many things. UNW is just a big conglomerate. Now, I think just now I was also introduced. I was born actually in Penang, not far from Perlis, so orang Penang. Yes, I went to free school, Penang Free School, for my Form 1 to Form 3, and Form 4 and Form 5 I joined Marisam Bursary. Yeah, I can actually see a couple of you, and which I'm very sure you are very much juniors compared to me. I was actually the first batch as far as Marisam Bursary is concerned. We went through the hardship, but as what Dato' was saying, you have to endure the hardship for you to enjoy the fruits of success. Yeah, so success doesn't come easy. For students like you, you must know that it's just not about studying, it's about understanding life as a whole, okay? So I did my accountancy in Missouri, Columbia, America. I had a number of choice, actually. I was offered to go to Otago University in New Zealand, but at that point in time, I was saying that I do not want to go and see ships, because they were telling me that in New Zealand, you only have ships. So that's definitely not something I want to go. I was offered a university in London, in UK. Also, I refused to go. I followed my friends to Missouri, Columbia. So then the thinking was different. Today, if you're offered to do universities, follow what you want to do, not follow your friends. But Alhamdulillah, it turned out to be okay for me. Now, I started my career as an auditor at Arthur Andersen. Of course, Arthur Andersen, you don't have it today. It's a merge between Arthur Andersen and EY, so you have EY. I was actually appointed as ED of MTC Private Equity. Those were years ago. Then I became the Senior Vice President Investment at Khazanah. I think at Khazanah also, it taught me a lot in terms of the corporate experience. And then I moved to Eon. I think all of you knows Eon. We sold Proton cars then, right? And then in 2010, that was in December, I actually joined UNW as the Senior General Manager. Later, I moved up the corporate ladders to become the President and Group CEO of the group. It wasn't easy, I can tell you right now. It's an achievement for me as, in terms of personal career movement. Now, what I wanted to share with you today, and let me know if you want to know anything else, today is about an introduction to UNW, a brief about UNW, right? 100 years of lesson in success. I thought today, this year, UNW is a 100 years old company in Malaysia, right? It started off in 1917, and this year is 2017. So not many companies have reached 100 years in Malaysia. Any one of you can actually mention another company in Malaysia, local, that have reached 100 years in terms of its establishment. Takkan Unimap tak tahu. Tapi sebenarnya pun tak ada. The only local organization here, which deemed as local, is actually Nestle. Nestle, I think, it was a bit earlier than UNW. So it's not many companies that actually have gone through 100 years of challenges, 100 years of hardship. And to be where it is today is quite amazing. So for the future lectures, future discussions, so we're looking at, because I was made to understand that it's actually to engage with the engineering students. So we prepared something aligning the engineering students, but you need me to address the business students will change accordingly. Of course, the first one is automotive manufacturing, what we learned from 30 years of working with the Japanese. We have been with Toyota for more than 30 years, actually. So if you know the mentalities, the cultures of the Japanese people, you need to understand them. It's not an easy culture to deal with, but having to understand them would actually be a plus point in your success. And then we can actually have something about contract manufacturing versus high-value manufacturing, the differences, limitation, opportunities. The third one is actually for us to also share the process of winning over Rolls-Royce. This is the latest achievement that we have achieved last year. Sorry, I think 1.5 years ago, to actually win and secure the first 35+5 contract, building a fan case for Trent 1000 and 7000. And we are the first one actually in Asia to be able to secure the contract from Rolls-Royce. And you know Rolls-Royce is not a small company. It's a global company producing engines, a world-class company. So for you to be able to get the only company in the world producing fan case is actually us. You don't have any other companies in the world producing fan case. There's only one. And that one is actually in Malaysia. So I was telling the Prime Minister the other day, this is something that we all should be proud of. But the reason why we're doing it, apart from the profit and loss, the bottom line of any corporations, is actually to give opportunities to the young engineers. Not only for the young engineers, but for all other professionals, accountants, the financial people. This is to give opportunities for all of you, the future leaders of this country. It's not for me, it's not for my badge, it's really for you. So you really have to work hard to try to get into these kind of companies, yeah? And we can talk also about the future industries, how technology is changing the manufacturing industries, and what graduate can do to ensure employability in the digital age of manufacturing. Today, if you take a look into the Internet of Things, it's blurring everything. There have been debates in the industry, I think you have read perhaps that futures of the industries will change. You'll use a lot of Internet of Things. Will no longer be just a normal manufacturing, what we have learned in school years ago. You need to know the ITs. There are a lot of development there. If I'll give you an example, for example, at Rolls-Royce, whenever they want to have an order, they don't normally send just an order, fax it to you. No, they just key it into the computer. It gets transmitted automatically to us in Serenda. The machine will run it. It's very radical. The change are very radical. It's something that you have to adapt along the normal, traditional, conventional engineering that you are learning today in universities. These are the things, hopefully in future, is something that I would love to share with all of you. Thank you. Tekak benda kering tadi lah. Okay, I don't think I have a lot of time today, but I'll try to go as fast as possible. Okay, some introductions of UNW. In terms of, we're a big company. We used to have a market capitalization around 10 to 12 billion, but we had difficulties 2 years ago because of the price of oil and gas came down, and we had a division, oil and gas, that basically erodes around 4 to 5 billion of our market cap. So I was mentioning to Dato earlier, last year was a very busy year for me, was actually to try to maintain and sustain the value of UNW moving forward. It's not easy when you lost 5 billion of market cap, and for you to justify to the investors, your shareholders, what happened to that 5 billion. So that's the reason why today, you take a look in terms of our market cap, it has came down to around 6.6. Today, I think it's around 7 point something billion. Of course, PMB is actually our main shareholders, controlling of 58.2%. The other shareholders is actually EPF, around 14-15%, normally is around there. And the rest, you would have other foreign shareholders and other local shareholders, around 17.1. You have Co-op, you have Great Eastern, you have Public Mutual. So it's owned actually by the big corporation, the big giants in Malaysia. And you know, PMB is actually a unit trust. All of you actually are also unit trust holders. So in essence, in theory, all of you are actually my shareholders. Now, UMW at a glance, we used to have 4 divisions. Today, we're moving towards 3 because we are going to detach ourselves from the oil and gas. Oil and gas is just a too highly capital-intensive industry even for big conglomerates like UNW. We are into automotive. We are the number 1 in Malaysia with 47% market share, meaning to say for every 1 car that you see on the road, 1 will come from UNW. That is via our Toyota and also Produa. Now we have equipment also. Of course, our Toyota forklift has 50% market share in Malaysia. We are the top 5 distributors in the world. It's not easy to achieve that feat, but Alhamdulillah, we are the top 5 distributors in the world. When we have the 3rd division, which is actually manufacturing and engineers. We have a lot of engineers here, which is also does a lot of R&D for the lubricants. We manufacture lubricants, we distribute lubricants, and we are actually the largest Repsol distributor because we blend their lubricants in China. So we're the biggest in the world for them outside Spain. Now, as I mentioned, we are also the first Malaysian company to become a Tier 1 supplier to Rolls-Royce. Move on a bit more, automotive. I'm very sure all of you knows Toyota, all of you knows Produa. Those are the companies under UMW. And these are the companies we try to actually expand as much as possible and hire as many as possible in terms of the engineers, local engineers, and so on and so forth. If today any one of you, especially the members of the faculties, were to drive Honda, please buy Toyota tomorrow. So it's a good advertising also for me. Hopefully you don't mind. We assemble, we distribute cars, and we also do after sales. Now, for equipment, we do distribution, trading, after sales service. For M&E, as I mentioned, we blend and distribute lubricants. We manufacture a lot of automotive parts for the giants like Toyota, Produa, Honda, even though they are competitors, but we still do parts for them. And also lastly, the manufacturing of fan case for Rolls-Royce. Now, the new business growth, this is something that not many of us actually know, is actually we have actually went into what we call a technology sectors, where we're looking like at creating technological investment to grow our return. As I mentioned to you, in the next 10, 15 years to come, the Internet of Things, remember the Internet of Things will dominate your life, will no longer be the normal life like you're living today. Everything from manufacturing, banking, financials, whatever industry that you have today outside there will evolve to a certain extent the Internet of Things. If today you look at the banking sectors, there is a massive fintech. Even Bank Negara Malaysia is actually looking at it and how to actually govern these kind of things. And those are impacting in terms of the local. If you look in terms of the Bitcoin, I'm not too sure whether all of you knows the Bitcoin. Today is about ringgit Malaysia, US dollar, US, UK pound, those kind of things. In future, it will be the Bitcoins. These are the transaction value. These are the things that you must be aware. If you want to actually be somebody, make sure it's still relevant in the next 10, 50, 20 years to come. Apart from that, we also have a piece of land. It's smaller than Unimap. It's around 861 acres in Serendah. This also house our Produa over there. And that is where we built our Rolls-Royce fan casing plant to actually supply the fan case to Rolls-Royce. So that is actually in Serendah. We have the intention to convert the entire areas into high-value manufacturing. We have the intention to invite those like the Boeings, the Airbus, the GKN, the Safrans, everything to actually come to Malaysia, to invest in Malaysia, to make sure that the Malaysian graduates, the graduates from the local universities will have jobs, not only jobs, but good jobs in Malaysia. That's one of the things that I think GLCs like us, we strive our best to actually give opportunities to all of you to shine when you actually start working in the, in the industry. Now a bit about the automotive segments. So as I mentioned, we have a market share of 47 for every single car that you see. For every 2 cars that you see on the road, 1 will actually come from us. I don't really want to go into detail. Produa, we're quite big. It's around 36. I think today it has gone almost to 40%. Today, Produa is doing very, very well with Beza. Hopefully, this year also, we are going to introduce new cars. Toyota is doing a bit not good, but not bad. I think Honda has overtaken us because the new models is more fitting towards the younger generation. But please still buy Toyota. So you have equipment division. So we actually represent the big principals around the world in Malaysia. So those like Komatsu. Komatsu is a big company in Japan. It does a lot of machines. It actually builds and assembles a lot of machines. So we are number 1 as far as Komatsu is concerned. We're number 1 as far as Toyota for industrial equipment. We are not that big as far as marine and power equipment. It's not something core for us. The core is actually coming from heavy and industrial equipment. Now, this is the manufacturing engineering segment. As I mentioned to you, we do our own R&D as far as lubricants fluids technology. So we have those brand and the shell, which is a Pennzoil, Repsol, but we do have our own also grant. With right now we are rapidly promoting. That is our very own. And then lubricant fluids in China, we are actually the biggest in China. We have auto components, as I mentioned. There are quite a number of auto components that we are selling to the markets, either on an OEM basis or REM basis. We are also into aerospace, as I mentioned to you. We produce the 1000, 7000 engine for Rolls-Royce. It's just mind-boggling if you actually go into Rolls-Royce or into their R&D center. I'm not too sure if any one of you have actually been there. In terms of the technological excellence, in terms of the R&D, I think is way compared to us. But this is something that I hope with our experience, Unimap can actually take, learn something. If we can actually patch you up with Rolls-Royce for you to actually do some courses with them, we would. I think I'll discuss with you, Dato, in terms what are the other things that we can actually contribute to Unimap. Now, some of the milestones, we started off, as mentioned, in 1917. It was actually the father of Tan Sri Eric Cha, the late Tan Sri Eric Cha. That was actually in Singapore. It was a humble beginning. What he did was, he opened up, I think it was a bicycle shop in 1917. And then there was a guy that brought in a motorcycle. It was a simple motorcycle, and he was quite intrigued with the engineering that goes into that motorcycle. He basically dismantled the entire engine, right? He wanted to know what goes into the engine. He dismantled everything, but I was also told that he doesn't know actually how to actually assemble it back. So I have no idea how he explained to his customer. So that was actually the beginning of UMW. In 1965, we actually acquired, or we got the Komatsu heavy equipment. In 1970, it was listed on a public, it was on Bursa today. In 1982, we got the Toyota franchise. 1987, I think the family of Tan Sri Aricha sold it to PMB. And 1993, when Produa was actually established as the second national car next to Proton, we were invited to actually become the shareholders of Produa. In 2013, we actually leased the oil and gas of the UMW Oil and Gas at Bursa, Malaysia. I think in 2014, that was when the price actually came down. And 2015, we signed a 25 years contract with Rolls-Royce, and hopefully there will be more development in the next 10, 15 years to come as far as UNW is concerned. Now, what does it take to actually achieve and sustain 100 years of success? There are a number of traits, and these traits can also be applied to you as students, not only from an organization perspective, also from a personal perspective. Now, the first one is actually curiosity. It's not how much you know that counts, it's how much you really want to know. You know, if I could actually relate to myself last time when I was studying either at MRSM or universities, I actually studied because I wanted to really pass the exam. I cannot go back to Kampong and fail the exam. That was the main purpose of me studying. I studied because tomorrow there is an exam. I studied this chapter because I know the teacher is going to ask me to. So, is that bad? Well, it's not good enough. Because trust me, when you move into the working life, you need to apply this education. You need to apply this knowledge. And there you go. At that point in time, you will regret because you will forget. You didn't remember because you didn't study because you want to excel in your life. You studied because you wanted to pass the exam. It's two different things, I'm telling you. Coming from me, it's two different things. When you learn something because you want to actually use that, right, in your life later on, that's good. But if you just study because you just want to pass an exam, just because you wanted to please your teachers, your parents, that's not good enough. So, adik-adik, if you have that kind of attitudes, you really have to think. Because moving forward, where employment is getting a bit more difficult year by year, the companies that are going to interview you are going to ask a lot of questions, either from a technical perspective, financial perspective, whatever it is, and you must know this thing in depth. It's not good enough that you pass the exam, but you can't answer either during interviews or during the years where you need to apply them. And I mentioned this to Dato', moving forward, there's a blurring in terms, there's a convergence in terms of degrees. Used to be during my time, taklah lama sangat because I'm not that old. Engineering students, they are okay with just engineering students. Business students, they're okay with just knowing business students, financials, 101, 102, 201, those kind of things. Engineering students, normally you do have some financials courses, right? You probably have financial 100, financial 200, financial 300. You really have to know, because today there is a clear blurring, there's clear convergence between the courses. If you are an engineering student, I do expect for you to know the P&L, because I would ask you questions about P&L. Because if you are going to be a leader in terms of any corporation, you need to know your bottom line. The idea is that at the end of the day, it's about shareholders' return. So imagine if you're an engineer, you don't even know what is a P&L. How are you going to become a CEO? Right? So you must really know. So if it's not there, perhaps you should have to learn. You have buy books, understand what is a profit and loss. You must know, because I have actually met a lot of people, good engineers, but when we want to actually promote them, we want to put them into the senior leadership team, the only thing that comes short is the knowledge in terms of business, namely numbers, P&L. They have no idea. You talk to them about balance sheet. I'm very sure all of you engineers here are very good, right? If I were to ask you any question in regard to P&L, balance sheet, P&L of cash flow, I'm very sure all of you would be able to answer. Betul? Betul? Senyap je Unimap. So you have to know, adik-adik, you have to know this thing. You just don't study about engineering. Similarly, if you are in the business or the accounting background, you have to know the engineering, because today it requires two to actually move. Yeah, an accountant, you talk to an engineer in Rolls-Royce, and that guy was really talking a lot of engineering jargons, and you will go like, what the heck is he talking about? You really have no understanding. So it has to be both. There is a clear blurring. That's my first advice to you. There's a clear blurring, there's a clear convergence between knowledge. So you cannot just say, I'm good engineer, but I don't really need to know everything else. No, you are wrong. You have to be curious. That's why we put there curiosity. Only curiosity will make sure that you will excel in your life. Now, the other thing is boldness. Of course, the courage to take actions, ability to adapt, improvise accordingly. So you have to be bold. Sometimes bold ni in Malaysian culture ni dia not that bold, because almost all of us, kalau I tanya any question from any one of you, you are not bold enough to actually raise your hand. This is, I don't know, perhaps is embedded in Malaysian culture. I see this not happening in the other foreign culture, especially the Brits, the Americans. You ask them any question, sometimes you regret pula tanya. Any questions? Because almost all of them will raise their questions. So you said, oops, my mistake. I shouldn't have asked, actually. So hopefully after today, after my short speech or short lectures, I do actually expect to have a lot of hands to ask questions, easy questions. This third time I'm reminding you today. Okay, now connections. Businesses don't really exist in isolations. Your products, your services, solutions must directly connect to the market ones. This is very, very, very important, because we have seen this, and we have had I personally have had a lot of dialogue with the professors in the universities. We're saying that, look, sir, if you want to do R&D, can you please do R&D that will actually benefit the industry? that the industry is looking at. You don't do R&D, something that the world has actually invented. So if you're doing something new, we from a private sector would love to fund you until you can actually commercialize your products, your research. That's what we're looking at. And that's something that we are also talking to in the likes of Safran, and the likes of Rolls-Royce, also to the government, saying that if we could actually come in, try to intermediate between the government, who actually provide the R&D grants, things like that, and universities that does the research, we can actually tell what aspect, from which perspective that you should do your R&D. So whatever that you do must be connected to the market. If the market is saying that it's moving towards A, but you're doing a B product, it's quite difficult to sell your product, isn't it? So now, the other one is diversification. I think this is something quite normal. I think you understand you need to diversify. You can't put all eggs into one basket. Sometimes when you diversify and you still fail, saying that, why did you diversify so much? So there's always that pros and cons. But normally, from a corporate perspective, we don't normally put all eggs into one, but we are also mindful not to actually over-diversify. Now, resilience, as I mentioned earlier also, there's no such thing as failure, only lessons on what we can do better. Honestly, I didn't do well in my SPM also. Well, that doesn't mean that I did badly in my SPM. Okay, all right? And I think it takes more than excellence in the academic sectors for you to be able to be somebody. It takes for you to be street smart, yeah? When you actually graduate from universities, either at a degree level, master level, or a doctorate, there's still a lot of things that needs to be learned. And I'm being very mindful, because I've been trying to take actually a master, but I just don't have time to actually do that. But I think that I still have to do my master because I've not completed that, and that has always been my ambition. So perhaps I can actually apply to join UNIMAP to do master here, one of these days. Okay, so a bit in terms of, I mentioned again, in terms of the university, UMW, the father of the late Tan Sri Eric Chia, Chia Yiso, he had no formal education, ladies and gentlemen. He was just a young lad. He started working as a bicycle shop apprentice at 14 years old. Yeah, that's very young. So someone came in looking for replacement tires. He became fascinated with the internal combustion engine, and the rest is all history. He actually, dismantled everything, and he can't actually assemble it back. And then in 1917, he set up his own automotive repair shop in Singapore. I can't remember the road. It's known as United Motor Works. Is kalau ada punya tu dia panggil you must work, or the other things we call it you must win. So what UMW is all about positive. United Motor Works, you must work, you must win, you must do everything. Okay, so that is actually this is actually the real picture, the facade of the original shop in Singapore then. Okay, boldness. This is what actually get us to land our first product. Eric Chia in 1959 attended an exhibition in Kuala Lumpur, where international companies were displaying their heavy equipment models. Realizing that exhibitors would prefer not to take the models back, what he did was he went to Mitsubishi. He actually went and meet up with the Japanese, right? Say that, look, we know that you are not going to bring back this thing. Why don't you just appoint me as the distributor? And he got it. It was his bold move that landed us this one. And again, this is what connections. Back then, we know that as far as Malaysia, I think you remember under Tun Mahathir, there was a lot of look east policy, industrialization policy. So we know it's moving towards that. So we move into heavy industrial equipment business, where we secured the Toyota Industrial, we secured the Komatsu, which actually helps to facilitate the loggers, the sawmill customers. This is how we relate to the industries. Now, regard to the Rolls-Royce, we know that I think in terms of the flying population, in the world is less than 20% today. We know that it's going to hit 35 to 40, and most of them will come from Asia. That's the reason why we actually went to Rolls-Royce saying that if your market is going to be in Asia, we are the best company positioned in Asia to be your partner. And that's one of the reasons that we got the contract. So it's all about connections. It's all about being able to connect to the market or to the products of during at that point of time. Yeah. Now diversifications, we diversified from heavy equipment to automotive giants. Of course, as I mentioned, the Look East policy was adopted as a major part of Malaysia's strategy for development and industrialization. Automobile manufacturing was key element of that strategy. And I think that point in time and today, the Japanese cars have actually overtaken European makes in the market. So we went in with Toyota, and then we are today with Perodua. I don't think there will be a third national car. We intend to fully develop Toyota. That's the reason why we are actually building a new plant worth 2 billion ringgit in Bukit Raja, because we want to expand the production capacity to hit 100,000 cars per year. I think Perodua just had their first, their new plant operating in Rawang. So hopefully we'll just have Proton, Perodua, and also as a national car, and the rest like Toyota and Hondas for the non-national makes. Now, resilience, as you know, 100 years, anybody 100 years old will have to go through a lot of challenges, right? The first one was the mid-1980s. I still remember this one because we were at the brink of bankruptcy. That was when PMB came in and assisted us, compounded by previously aggressive style of doing business. That's the reason why I mentioned over-diversification. Do not over-diversify unnecessarily, right? 1997, 1998, I'm very sure all of you were perhaps born during those times. You know, we had some issues, but we returned to profitability within a year. 2008, 2009, it was another global financial crisis. But however, we managed to go through it. Of course, we achieved a record year profit in 2008. We maintained profitability in 2009 and returned with another record profit in 2010. But the best performance for UNW was actually in the year 2012. I think that was when the revenue recorded around 18 billion ringgit Malaysia. It's not an ordinary feat, actually. And last year, because of the downturn in terms of the oil and price, that was actually the fourth crisis that we had, and so far the worst and the longest ever in our 100 years of establishment. And it had to be during my time as the president and group CEO. So you would understand how happy I am to be the president during this difficult time. But look, you can't run away from challenges. You can't run away from crisis, because that's what makes a true leader, because that's what makes a real hero. Right? Before this, he has been quite good. Nobody expected the fall in oil and gas. We lost 2.2 billion for the financial year 2016. And hopefully that will be the darkest moment as far as UNW is concerned. We expect it to turn into profitability again this year. Now again, I just want to repeat: curiosity, boldness, connections, diversifications, and resilience. These are the traits that you must have as a student to succeed. Of course, you must be, I'm very sure all of you are very smart, but sometimes it's about the characters, and most of the times it's about your behaviors. Why do you want to learn, actually? If you're just learning to satisfy your parents, you are just learning to just pass the exam, I'm telling you, that's not good enough. You have to do better than that. After your degree, go and do masters. After your masters, go and do a PhD. That's something that you have to look at. If you don't, you think that it's good enough to have a degree, fine. Then find good companies to work for. Now, the evolution will continue. Of course, as I mentioned, this is actually for the M&E, the Manufacturing Engineering Division. We started off with a lot of commodity products. We built filter caps. We built just some commodities with low margin for cars in India also. So we had enough of that. We put it aside. We sold the businesses. We are going into something which is, we call it high value manufacturing, something that we know we can actually have the local engineers to come in and assist us to develop, to value add to the product. That's the reason why we are actually going into the aerospace components. To us, it's a catalyst for growth, right? It creates a financial, strategic, and social value. The social value is about employment for the young graduates, just like for all of you, right? Then, of course, the proliferations of technology. We learn a lot from Rolls-Royce. Hopefully, we can actually partner with them to do R&D. This is something we are also looking at local universities to partner with us to do some R&D with them. So at the moment, the R&D have passed certain degree of testing. We can actually use that to commercialize it and produce it for those Safran, Rolls-Royce, and also the other giants of automotive, aerospace companies. Now, we also want to develop the highly skilled, knowledge intensive for all of you. It's just that today, for aerospace, of course, I think we employed around 100 engineers. We started to employ around 100 engineers for this project. And we intend to expand it to around 160 engineers in Serenda. But also, one of the criteria is just not for engineering students. We are doing a apprentice program, because this is something that we learned from the Rolls-Royce. You need to be on the job a lot. So engineer normally, and I'm not an engineer, but I was told engineer normally, they actually learn a lot in terms of the theories, the calculation in the class. But these sectors requires the other side of it. It requires a lot of on-the-job training. So if you have that, and I was told by, I think, Anwar yesterday also, that you have technology engineering, which is actually more towards on the job rather than classroom activities. I think that's the right way, because in Europe, it's moving towards that. Actually, they have moved towards that. They have less and lesser engineering students, because even the COO of the civil engine for Rolls-Royce actually came from being an apprentice to the number 2 position. So that's going to be the future. That's how it's going to develop. So if you're an engineering student, you must know to actually how to do on the job. That's something that we, even at UNW, is looking for. So as I mentioned, we produce 1,000. It's actually for 7%. It's actually for Dreamliner, and 7,000 is actually for the A330. So whenever you produce the fan case, what's going to happen is that they will send it to Singapore. Singapore has a big aerospace hub in Seletar. So they will actually do the dressing. They will actually install the blades, right? And then they will send it either to Toulouse or Seattle for it to be attached or fixed into either an Airbus plane or a Boeing plane. So for Dreamliner and also 330 Neo in future, whenever you fly with that plane, you know that the one that does or did that fan case is actually a Malaysian-grown company. Now, as part of the GLCs, we have the responsibility to actually drive a nation. Of course, this is also part of the economic transformation program done by Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri. We actually drive and support Malaysia Economic Transformation Program under EPP 7 of making Malaysia as the hub for aerospace OEM in Southeast Asia. Number 2, it builds highly skilled Malaysian workforce. I think Cik Zalani is also in charge of the training center that will leverage on the aerospace platform to provide the cutting-edge training programs and catering to niche industrial needs. The issues that we have with Rolls-Royce or Safran. Safran is also another big technological giants based in France. The first questions that they ask is, how good is actually your local universities? can your graduates actually be is your graduates actually well positioned to actually fill into the the work streams that they require, and they keep asking us over and over again, how good are your students going to be? And we keep telling them that, look, we have the good engineers, we can come up with apprentices program with MARA using our vocational schools. And today we are working with MARA to actually provide the vocational, the technical skills. But we need a lot of young engineers to come in the next 10, 15 years. This is where it's going to benefit all of you, adik-adik sekalian. Of course, the third one, as I mentioned, UNW Land, we intend to actually entice these world-class, first-tier companies in the world to actually relocate their plant into Serendah. That is around 10, 15 minutes drive up north of Kuala Lumpur, where we intend to convert the entire 861 into a high-value manufacturing park. And to a certain extent, we have achieved that with Rolls-Royce. There are a number of players that have actually approached us saying that we want to do this. And still, the first question they're going to ask is, how good are all of you? How is you all well positioned to actually be employed by them? So there's a lot of opportunities, job opportunities in the future for all of you. The thing is that you must be good and you must be well positioned to actually grab that opportunities. That's it. So, thank you very much. I'll probably take some Q&As. Easy one, difficult one, Cik Zalani will answer. Okay?